Do you remember finding Jal Shey armor in Knights of the Old Republic 2? The Jal Shey are considered legends material now, but even then they didn't appear or get mentioned in all but 4 pieces of legends material, and the first place they were ever mentioned was in Kotor 2, which means they were created by Chris Avalon and his team, and they are a fascinating concept. The Jal Shey were a nomadic force tradition of scholars and diplomats who sought to study the force on an intellectual level rather than spiritually. They were force users, but they weren't warrior monks built around discipline and servitude to the force like the Jedi, nor were they conquerors built around domination and ultimate freedom like the Sith. Jal Shey armor in Kotor 2 has the following description. The Jal Shey concentrate on intellectual study of the force, seeking to understand it at a mental level, rather than a spiritual one. Jal Shey are typically exceptional diplomats, but are less successful in physical pursuits. The Jal Shey approach the Force as something to be understood, analyzed, and applied. Where Jedi often speak about serving the Force, the Jal Shey feel more like they were trying to comprehend it. It would be like if the Jedi Order had an applied sciences department. I mainly compare them to the Jedi because they're considered to be light-sided or light-side adjacent, but that isn't something they really seem to stress or concern themselves with. It's more so an incidental result from their values, goals, and recruitment process. The Jal Shey are very selective about who they recruit. They appear to have favored calm, intelligent, diplomatic individuals over aggressive and combat-driven personalities. Whether they recruited young or old is unknown, but filtering for these traits naturally resulted in recruits much less susceptible to the dark side. No strict moral code required like with the Jedi, who on the other hand were less focused on built-in temperaments and more about indoctrination. They recruit young, ideally as infants, and induct them into a monastic lifestyle. They see themselves as guardians against the dark side. Their teachers are presented as the safeguard, a discipline that keeps Force-sensitive beings from falling into corruption.
You command the Force. Without the guidance of the Council, how can you avoid falling to the dark side?
The Jedi are almost like Christians on conversion missions. They must spread the good word to save others from the darkness. The Jal Shey are more academic, closer to some sort of Ivy League university than a religious institution. They are not trying to save people, they're trying to cultivate and enhance qualities that an individual already has. The Jedi are about making Jedi, while the Jal Shey are more about finding Jal Shey. You can see clear distinctions just from the titles in their hierarchy. Within the Jedi, the common hierarchical structure is Padawan, Knight, Master, quite militant and subservient, while the Jal Shey equivalent is Neophyte, Advisor, Mentor, more scholarly and diplomatic. The description of the Jal Shey Mentor armor in Kotor 2 reads, Jal Shey mentors are unparalleled in their intellect and often serve as highly respected advisors and teachers. Not your master, more so your professor. These listed differences may have already led you to think that Mikal, the disciple, is probably the best character we have to represent the Jal Shey. We never get to actually meet one, but it gives you a good impression of what they're like. Mikal is scholarly, reflective, diplomatic, deeply interested in history, intelligent, and inclined to wisdom. Perhaps there's an alternate universe out there where instead of working for the Republic after the Jedi Order fell apart, Mikal encountered the Jal Shey. They most likely would have accepted him had they ran into him. The Jal Shey don't have temples or schools or any one established location. They're nomadic. They travel to wherever their studies of the Force led them, to wherever they can apply their diplomatic skills, which I presume is at least one way of how they acquire funding to continue traveling, but there's no way to confirm that. And along the way, they encounter potential recruits. They are wandering scholars.
And that, as they say, is that.
All this traveling would eventually result in dangerous situations, however, and the Jal Shey are not warriors. They practice some basic lightsaber techniques, but they're not Jedi. They might not even use any lightsaber forms like Shicho. Instead, they focus more on something the Jedi used to do more of before the introduction of the lightsaber. Ancient Jedi would imbue the Force into their weapons while crafting them. The Jal Shey imbued the Force into their armors and other accessories, along with technology to enhance them even further, and primarily for defensive purposes. Since the Jal Shey never ceased this practice and made it their business to gather knowledge on the Force, they became so adept at it that even people who are not Force sensitive can use their equipment and gain the enhancements. Despite how much they stressed defense in combat, they weren't what you might call pure pacifists. I've been comparing them with the Jedi a lot, but they also somewhat share something with the Sith. The following quote comes from the novelization of the 2008 animated Star Wars film, The Clone Wars. "War is a vile thing, and it brings out the worst in beings, but it also brings out their best: courage, sacrifice, resourcefulness, tenacity, comradeship, genius, even humor. Would that we could achieve that enlightened state without shedding blood first."
It is conflict that improves the lot of civilization and single being both. Conflict forces one to better oneself. It forces change, growth, adaptation, evolution, or death. These are not our laws, but the universe's. Without conflict, you have only stagnation.
The difference between them, of course, is that Sith seek out conflict. The Jal Shey simply understands its inevitability and the positive aspects that it can inspire, all the while wishing we could have those positives without the war. Now at this point you might be thinking, wow, these guys sound pretty cool. Why haven't they brought them back in the canon? Well, be careful what you wish for. For one, you don't know how they might decide to bring them back. And two, the mysterious nature of the Jal Shey is partly what made them so interesting. Say what you will about the original expanded universe, but they were not afraid to explore creative new angles with the Force and Force-sensitive groups. Apart from the Jal Shey, you had the Saison Ja, the Matukai, and the Barando Sages, just to name a few. The Star Wars universe is more than just Jedi and Sith, and has more than enough room for even more. I had an idea for a sect of Force-sensitive engineers who combine the technology with the Force, something Star Wars has already explored a bit. Or a sect of Force users that focus on stealth and secrecy. They primarily train to conceal themselves as everyday people, bringing the possibility that various Star Wars characters were secretly Force practitioners and we had no idea. The variety helps to make the universe feel larger and the Force more complex. But whatever the future holds, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, and if you didn't, a dislike. A big shout out goes out to all my channel members for sticking with me all this time. Until next time, thanks for watching.